My first tournament was probably in 98, maybe 99. I can't remember. I remember though standing on the Aki and throwing my first cast. I thought I'd done something. I walked out to the sinker, stood there by it, put my flag in the ground, and watched as guys literally, not figuratively, literally walked 300 feet past me to get to their sinkers. I was at 450 feet. There were guys out there throwing 750s. I either needed to get another hobby or learn how to do this. So I took that kind of as my direction. I wanted to figure out how to do this. I attended a seminar with a guy named Peter Thane. He's also a British caster, champion, great guy. He's the one that got through my hard head, my thick skull, how to use your body, the physical mechanics behind the cast. In other words, how to make your body do what you need to do to execute a proper cast. He's the guy that got through my hard head. So on from that, I started winning some tournaments. My accomplishments through this point in time are 49 tournament wins. 15 of those are what I would call major events, which would be a Sportcast USA National Championship, CSCA Championship, JVC or Texas Championships. I traveled to Europe 3 times, competed in 5 different international competitions. I took a top 5 finish in 4 out of those 5 tournaments. And I finished second place in the world in 2006 in, at the time, what was the largest casting event that had ever taken place, the Primo Championship. I finished. There were tournaments being held here in the United States back in the 1920s. Starting in the 1930s, a man emerged on the scene and dominated casting for decades. His name was Primo Livigny. What happened, Europeans saw what was going on over here, and they had a greater need for distance than we did. Their beaches are very flat. They've been decimated by overfishing for centuries. So they needed to get out. They needed to get distance. In the 80s, Mr. Joe Moore, he was president of Sportcast USA, and he was very instrumental in bringing casting back here in a big way. It's changed over the decades. Now there are 3 groups that hold casting tournaments in the United States. There's a group in Texas. There's a group in the Northeast, and then there's the Carolina Surfcasters Association. So we all hold individual type tournaments, and that's where we are now. You've got what I'll call the hardcore guys. These guys are going to show up at most tournaments. They're competitive, either at the top level or in their class level. Then you got the guys that are interested. You got the people who want to learn. A lot of guys are intimidated. A lot of the first time that I've heard this many times, I'm just going to show up and watch. And I tell them, no, if you show up, bring your fishing rod, you're going to cast. And they realize quickly that it's not any intimidation that they felt was unwarranted, because the group of people, it's not like they're going to get picked on or looked down upon, because for goodness sakes, I've never forgotten the feeling of that first cast at a tournament and then watching guys walk 300 feet past me. So the key really is to encourage those guys and help them learn to develop the techniques to be better. And it really does come down to technique. Between casts, everybody's sitting around under their little pop-up tents talking, and you can gather tremendous amount of knowledge just by being there, by being around it. The classes help people not to feel like that. Okay, say 7, 8 years ago when I was at the top, a guy, first coming or his second, third tournament, he doesn't feel like he's competing against me. He doesn't feel like he's competing against Will Nash or Ryan Lambert. He's got people in his classification that he is competing against. Basically, one thing, the biggest thing is make sure that you're using the correct line. Line diameter is crucial, and each sinker weight has an associated line diameter that goes with it. Well, I can quote it, 100-gram sinker is 0.25 or 26 millimeter minimum diameter. 125 is 0.28, 150 is 0.31, and the 175 or 8 ounces is 0.35. That's the thickness of the line. That has to be correct. And we also require high vis line. The reason for that is so you can see it and find it when you have a break off, because break offs happen. Plus, when you're winding out, the clear line just kind of disappears and you end up stepping on somebody's line. We will supply you with shock leader if you need it. We've always got high vis shock leader that you can use. That's of legal diameter. The shock leader also has to be legal. Everything has to be monofilament. We don't cast braid in these tournaments. And there's, I've been asked 100 times why can't I throw my braided line on my spinning reel? Well, you can't measure braided line. Braided line collapses. You can't really measure it. And we want a level playing field for everyone involved. As far as the rest of the gear, you can literally come out there with any fishing rod you want. What I would suggest one to do would be to pick their favorite fishing rod that they feel they throw the best, that they have got the most distance with. Pick the appropriate sinker that corresponds with that rod and what you feel good with. Make sure you got the right line on it and go cast. It doesn't matter whether it's a spinning reel or a bait casting reel. Typically, most guys would. The secret to distance is learning to put the rod and hence the sinker to the largest possible arc that you can generate, accelerating through that arc, finishing with a burst of power and speed late. First fundamental is your footwork. Footwork is the foundation of success. You got to have a solid base from which to cast. If you don't have a solid base, you're pretty much done from the start. Fundamental number 2 is your body. Footwork is the foundation of success. The body, your body is the engine that powers the cast. People think it's all arms. That's where I develop my power. Your arms are weak compared to the large muscles of your body. So we got the footwork, foundation of success, body. It's the engine that powers the cast. Fundamental number 3 is your arms. Your arms are a connection between the engine and the stick. The 4th fundamental is acceleration. Start slow. You get the sinker moving. The sinker, if with a ground cast, the sinker will drag along for about 3 feet. Then it elevates. It comes off the ground, starts to kick outside. All of this takes place in an acceleration mode. In other words, you're not killing it from the start. You get the sinker moving, using your body to do so. Once you get the sinker in motion, apply acceleration and finish with a burst of power and speed late. The last fundamental is a number, and that number is 45 degrees. With your right foot, if your right foot was in the center of a clock face and your left foot was on target, in other words, at 12 o'clock, if you move that left foot over 45 degrees, it's going to give you an open stance, kind of like an open baseball stance. 45 degrees is also your target. Your target in the sky is 45 degrees. It's not the horizon. It's not a wave. It's not a sandbar. You need to pick a spot. You need to pick a directional target, which would be the sandbar or the wave. And then look 45 degrees above that in the sky. That's where your energy needs to flow to that point. It's also where you need to stick the rod. And when I say stick the rod, when you finish your cast, boom, you need to be pointing the rod tip at that target. If you over rotate, bring the rod over here, which I see a lot when people are trying to cast hard, they'll cast way over here, then they'll jerk the rod back up. That's a recipe for a bird nest. It's going to give you a bird nest a lot of the time. And then the last application of the number 45 degrees is when you come around, your longest distance is not going to be with a direct overhead thump. It's not going to be with a flat side on cast. Your arc or sinker path or rod path needs to be halfway between those two at 45 degrees as you come through. In other words, not overhead, not flat side on, but halfway through is where the rod path should come through. But so the biggest number 1 thing is just to show up. Show up, bring your rod, bring your reel. I promise we'll help you. After a few tournaments, you won't need our help. You'll be ready to step out there on your own and do everything you need to do, but I promise we'll help you. Second step is to register. Just come up to the tent. I'll be sitting there, or somebody will be sitting there, and we'll take your money, and then we'll get you registered and get you set up. We explain all the procedural things during a pre-cast meeting. We have After that, we set a casting order based on either known factors from previous tournaments, or if you're brand new, we ask you to give us just a guess estimate of how far you think you cast. So we set a casting order, and then we'll call those names off. You step up to the we call the starting line in Aki, and you step up to the Aki. There'll be 3 sets of cones, one in the center, one 15 degrees left, and one 15 degrees right of center. And you cast. You just got to be within the left and right boundaries. We'll have cones every 100 feet, and you cast. You walk out to your sinker, winding as you go. When you get to your sinker, you plant your flag with your name and sinker weight on it in the hole that your sinker made. And then at the end of the day, we measure. You want to improve your catch ratio. Number 2 would be your buddies outcast you and let you know it. There's a lot of ribbing that goes on between surf fishermen. You think you're good and you want to prove it, or you just want to improve your cast. Those would be the Jeff Foxworthy answers I would have.